All right, guys, we have a nurse on deck in this story. This guy's wife's infidelity cost her half of her retirement, and she's been in a secret relationship for 2 years.
"23 years of marriage fell apart because I got sick on the wrong day. I work as an operations manager for a local manufacturing company. That afternoon, bad stomach cramps hit me during a meeting. I left work early and drove home, thinking I would sleep off whatever made me sick. My wife was supposed to be working her regular 12-hour shift at the medical center. I went to bed and slept on and off for several hours, waking up to check the time. Around 5:15, I heard her car pull into the garage. She came upstairs, saw me lying in bed, and was shocked to see me. "You are home early," and the way she said it was like I wasn't supposed to be home. "Got sick at the meeting," I told her. "Had to leave early. I thought you were working until 7 tonight. They sent us home early today. Not enough patients, so they did not need full staff, but she was wearing fresh scrubs. Not the wrinkled, slightly dirty clothes someone would have after working, even part-time. These scrubs looked like they just came out of the laundry." For some reason, that whole interaction made me start paying a little more attention, really paying attention to things I had been ignoring for months. She would shower right when she came home, even after working in air conditioning all day. Her phone, which used to charge openly on her nightstand, now charged inside her nightstand drawer. Yeah, most people charge their phones where they can see them while they're charging. She started doing her own laundry, saying I was mixing colors wrong after doing laundry fine for years. The overtime shifts increased, but our bank account never showed the extra money those hours should have earned. When I asked about the missing overtime pay, she explained in detail the new taxes and higher insurance costs. Yeah, she's lying, that's why. Her explanations made no sense at all. One morning, I called the nurse's station where my wife worked. The woman on the other line indicated she was not working today, but she left 2 hours ago for her shift, I told her. Let me look at the schedule. No, she's definitely off today. I hung up without giving my name. That afternoon, my wife came home tired, complaining about a complicated surgery that ran late. I acknowledged her and asked how her day went. She told me about medical procedures and patients in great detail. Every single word was a lie. Really good, convincing lies. I couldn't believe it. I then realized I had been living with a complete stranger. I spent the next month writing down everything suspicious. Operations management taught me to document everything carefully before making any big decisions. I started with her work schedule. I called the hospital weekly, using different voices, asking for my wife on days she said she was working. Half the time, she was not scheduled to work. The other times, she had asked for time off weeks before. Her lies were planned out and organized. I began tracking her car mileage each morning before leaving for work. I wrote down the exact number on her odometer. Each evening after she came home, I checked it again and wrote down the difference. On days she said she worked at the hospital, she drove way more miles than the round trip needed, sometimes twice as many miles. I started using the Notes app on my iPhone to record this information: dates, times, mileage differences, her claimed schedule versus her real schedule. Her behavior became predictable when I watched carefully. She was very careful on weekends, always home, always acting loving. Weekdays gave her cover for lying. I started leaving work randomly, driving past the hospital parking lot to check if her car was there. Her car was never there on days she claimed to be working shifts. I looked for her car in places where someone might meet their lover. Our town has 3 major shopping areas where 2 people could meet secretly. I drove through these parking lots carefully, looking for her car. After 2 weeks of looking without results, I got a phone call that changed everything. A nurse from my wife's unit called me at work on a Thursday afternoon. First thing she says, "I am so sorry. I know this is awkward, but I think you deserve to know what everyone at the hospital is talking about." She explained that my wife and a radiology technician had been seen together often during breaks, lunch breaks, and after shifts. Many staff members noticed them leaving together in the parking garage. They are not being careful, she told me. People are starting to talk, and I felt bad that you might be the only one who does not know. This doesn't happen often, but sometimes you might have a silent ally. I thanked her for calling and asked if she knew how long this had been going on. At least 6 months that people have noticed, maybe longer. I knew the radiology technician from hospital Christmas parties. He was married with young children. I drove to the hospital and waited in the parking garage that evening. I saw them walk out together and get into separate cars. They drove to a small motel not too far from the hospital, kind of hidden in a way. They stayed inside for 90 minutes. I took pictures of her car in the parking lot with my phone, making sure the time showed clearly. When she came home that evening, she talked about a busy day treating elderly heart patients. I asked specific questions about her shift that day. She answered everyone with detailed medical information. She was using her real work knowledge to make believable lies about her daily activities. I realized this had been happening for a very long time. I spent 3 weeks making a plan for how to respond. 23 years of marriage meant we owned a lot of things together. Our house was paid off, worth about $400,000. We each had retirement accounts from our jobs. Hers was bigger, and almost $600,000 had been saved from her nursing career. Mine was smaller, around $300,000 from my operations management career. We owned 2 cars outright and had $50,000 in savings. I talked to a family law attorney without telling my wife. Our state was a no-fault divorce state, but adultery could change how assets get divided if properly documented. The attorney recommended hiring a licensed private investigator to gather evidence that could be used in court. I told the attorney that I had mileage information that didn't match in photos, and he flat out told me that doesn't do anything. I hired an experienced investigator for 1 week. The investigator confirmed what I already knew. My wife was meeting her lover 3 times every week, always during claimed work hours. He gave me detailed timestamps, good photographs, and a complete written report. He even had photos of my wife doing something to her AP, I won't say here. The evidence was overwhelming and professionally documented according to legal standards. I learned from the investigator that her lover was married to an elementary school teacher. The investigator gave me her workplace contact information. I decided she deserved to know what her husband was doing behind her back. It wasn't my place to do this, but I was pissed off at this point. I also began talking to a financial advisor about protecting my assets. If divorce became necessary, which was 100% going to happen, I needed to understand all my options for protecting my money. The advisor recommended documenting all current account balances and ensuring my wife could not empty accounts without my knowledge. I opened new accounts at a completely different bank. I began sending my entire paycheck to these new accounts while keeping minimum required balances in our joint accounts. My wife never noticed these financial changes. She was too focused on her secret relationship to pay attention to our household finances. I also started recording our conversations whenever possible. Our state allows single-party consent for private conversations to be recorded. Every time she lied about her schedule or described fake work activities, I captured the audio evidence. The lies were becoming more frequent and more detailed every day. She was clearly confident I would never discover her ongoing deception. Her overconfidence would prove to be very expensive. I scheduled a meeting with my attorney the following week to begin formal divorce proceedings. I planned to serve her with official papers in front of her professional colleagues at her workplace for maximum impact and embarrassment. But first, I was going to contact his wife. I called her lover's wife from my office. "You do not know me," I told her when she answered, "but I believe we share a problem that needs immediate attention." I explained who I was and gave her a detailed summary of what I had discovered about our spouses. I offered to email her complete copies of the private investigator's photographs and timeline documentation. She was quiet for a long time before responding. I have suspected something was wrong. He has been working late constantly, and his behavior changed completely several months ago. My wife has been lying about her work schedule to meet with your husband. I have professional documentation and photographic evidence if you want to review it. We arranged to meet that afternoon at a diner near her elementary school. I brought copies of everything I had gathered, the investigator's photographs, the detailed timeline, the complete surveillance report, and my own careful documentation. She looked at every piece of evidence carefully and thoroughly. I teach second grade, she said. I trusted him completely with our family and our future. I understand exactly how you feel. I trusted my wife completely for 23 years. We made a carefully coordinated plan for confronting both of them. She would confront her husband that evening at their home. I would serve official divorce papers to my wife the following morning at the hospital. We exchanged contact information and agreed to share any additional information we might discover. The next morning, I went directly to my wife's hospital and asked security to escort me to the nursing station. I need to serve legal documents to my wife, I informed the security officer. Hospital policy required them to facilitate the service of official legal papers. My wife was standing at the nurse's station when I approached with the security officer. She looked quite surprised when she saw me with the envelope. Here are the divorce papers, I announced loud enough for her colleagues to hear clearly. Based on documented adultery with a married coworker. I watched several nurses turn to stare at the unfolding situation. What? Can we talk? Nope, we don't need to. We needed to talk 2 years ago, before you decided to start lying and cheating. Talk to my attorney if you have anything to say. I walked away while she was still holding the papers. That afternoon, my phone rang constantly from various numbers. My wife, her mother, her sister, and multiple mutual friends, and my guess was, were trying to mediate. I answered none of these calls. The divorce took almost a year to complete. The documented adultery evidence was compelling enough that the judge awarded me a significantly larger share of marital assets. I received a house, my complete retirement account, plus half of her substantial retirement savings. She was forced to liquidate almost $300,000 from her retirement accounts to satisfy the court-ordered settlement. The other wife also filed for divorce based on the evidence I had provided. Her husband lost primary custody of his children and pays substantial monthly child support. My ex-wife moved into a small apartment and continues working at the same hospital where everyone knows exactly what happened. I began dating again after the divorce was finalized. My life improved dramatically once I permanently removed dishonest people from it. Once trust is broken, it is literally impossible to get back. Even during the divorce proceedings, my ex-wife wanted to reconcile, talk about counseling, and give up her privacy. I said no to everything. Some decisions carry permanent consequences. She learned that lesson the hard and expensive way. Listen, just because someone handles a situation differently than you doesn't mean they're weak. So, you hotheads, go ahead and use violence to solve your problem in your relationship if your significant other cheats, and see where that gets you. If you say emotional gratification, then you're stupid. You deserve to go to jail. God forbid you have kids waiting for you. Crime of passion is not a law in the U.S. that I know of. No one is worth your freedom. Remember that.